Alrighty. Welcome back to Pain Points, where the world meets business, and it is in fact a good day. I'm here with my guy Samson Jagoras.
What's going on, man?
Well, a lot, as usual.
Every week there's a lot going on, and we're trying to digest it.
I just love the phrase, the ever-changing landscape of entrepreneurship. That's what you coined. Do not steal that. Copyright pending. You've been put on notice. But today for you guys, we got a bunch of things to talk to. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some of the things we may dig into with you today. So we got LSU was a no-show for the national anthem, and people are losing their minds about that and talking about it. We got the White House responding to the transvisibility / Easter remix, and people are not happy about that. They made some official statements, and you will not be surprised at how they respond. We got a $1.2 trillion, I couldn't even get the T out, that's how serious it is, $1 trillion spending package that went into law over the weekend. We got the U.S. debt growing by $1 trillion again by every 90 days. We got one of the richest men in the world, richest businessmen in America, giving some dire warnings about our debt situation. The city of Denver says no more to migrants and gives some dire warnings to them about what the future looks like and where they should go. I think it's back to their countries. But we got California rolling out a $20 an hour minimum wage that kicked in yesterday. We're going to talk about that. We got the other side of entrepreneurship with courtesy of a clip from Lou Williams, now retired NBA star. We got U.S. Congressman Tim Burchett has a viral clip that ironically it's got a lot of views, but not a lot of people are talking about it. And then last but not least, Kathy Hochul. Is it Kathy Hochul? I think it's Kathy Hochul. I want to say Katie Hochul, but I think it's Kathy Hochul, governor of New York. You reap what you sow, and it's a lesson in leadership as we dig into it. But starting from the top, let's talk about LSU last night. They're trending all over X, Instagram, TikTok, by way of not being present during the national anthem in last night's regional final for the tournament, the women's tournament. And so we have to talk about this just because it's an interesting thing and we love our country. So let's pull up some of the materials here.
So the first clip's the one that I saw I think I saw it this morning, maybe late last night, but.
Okay. So as it comes by way of Matt Wallace on X, and already at this present moment, it has 9.5 million views of people saying outrage was building after the LSU women's basketball team walked off the court for the American national anthem. Iowa players remained and held hands in solidarity. I know Benny Johnson put out a couple ones that had about 4 million, 5 million views. There were two sides to the in terms of response. A lot of people, what I saw online was a lot of, and that's why they lost. It serves them right, kind of thing, right? That's what they get. If you ain't pro-America, you don't show up for the anthem. But there's another side that was like, well, actually, technically, they have the right to not show up, right? And so
I think what I think is more interesting is just the comments from the coach.
Yeah.
So she said, honestly, I don't even know when the anthem was played. We have a routine where the team comes off the court at the 12-minute mark and we do our pregame stuff. Mm-hmm. So when I first saw the first one, I think came from Graham Allen. That's actually the one I saw. It was like they left during the national anthem. That
the way it's framed up, right? It's like they turned around and walked away.
Correct. And then you start reading all the articles. They left before the national anthem. So to their credit, you're playing in the Elite Eight, right at this point. And so having been played in some big games, when I was playing, we beat Oklahoma when they were number 1 in the country, played in a couple bowl games.
Got to be ready.
You're not thinking about that necessarily, right? So to their credit, I don't necessarily think it was like intentional, like, hey, we're just not going to go out there. Plus, every stadium has a little bit different protocols, a little bit different timing. You have your process and you just follow it. So whether or not that's true, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what pisses me off more is people latching onto a headline and trying to like make it into something that it's probably not, for the sake of that's probably coming more from the conservative camp than the liberal camp.
100%.
And so I hate that about it so much. So rather I could have just taken the headline and went, I can't believe them. They hate America.
Well, actually, when I first came across that, that's what I challenged myself to do. I was like, wait a second, man. Like, first of all, even if you look at the way this is framed up, it says the team walked off the court, right?
Yeah, like they act like right now they're saying the national anthem. Everybody just got up and was like, forget this, we're out. Like I would venture to say that if they were there right now and the national anthem started, they would still be standing there.
Correct.
They might have been caught off guard, but they would still be standing there.
Yeah, so I challenged myself to take a step back last night when I was capturing this or considering this. And I made 6 points after just sitting there. And here are the 6 points I made. One, looking into it, this was not the first time this has happened for this program.
Because for LSU women's basketball?
Correct.
Okay.
This is not, whether it's in the name of protest or preparation, just getting ready, this is not the first time that they have not been present in the last couple of years.
Because they did have a moment where they intentionally protested, right?
I believe so.
Did they walk off though?
I'm not sure. I don't
or
have
just not participate. I remember they just didn't participate.
I'm not sure exactly, but we know that was a thing a couple years ago, right? And still is in some spaces, but this wasn't the first time and it won't be their last. My second observation is that they are in fact free to do so. If that's what the players and the coaches decide that they're going to do, they are in fact entitled with that right to do so as a form of protest. 3, there was no divine justice in this. That's not why they lost. So people being like, serves them right and all of this stuff, and it's a stupid take.
Those are the people who didn't actually go do the research. They didn't read the rest of the article.
True. The fourth thing I noted was that the irony is that even when the anthem is protested in sporting events, it still sings of a nation that provides athletics the stage it has.
Right.
Which is, I find that so ironic. And it shows the fifth point, which is that if American history was taught in schools, universities in particular, in high school, good, bad, and true, those who want to represent people who they protest the song in name of representing those people.
Right.
If they actually wanted to represent them, my guess is that they actually should sing the songs the loudest, because they should be the ones up there singing the song the loudest, because America is the nation in terms of its framework, Constitution, Declaration, that actually has provided the most space for the flourishing of the marginalized, of the unheard. And so, again, going back to the irony and the ignorance, is like, if there's any nation to be singing the song of in the name of liberty and the prosperity of those who don't have much, it's this one.
Yeah.
And so, and then last but not least, the one thing I took a step back on to think about was that there's not a big difference between those who don't honor the flag during the singing of the anthem and those who don't do anything after they're done singing the song to protect our nation, to honor this nation and the people that make up the nation. There's not a big difference there. It's one, and especially when it's not trending on Twitter. And so like
just standing up for the national anthem and then the rest of the year putting your head in the sand or not being engaged in actual politics or economics or what's happening in your backyard.
Right.
Makes you know better. It might make you feel better.
Right. Exactly.
But at the same time, you're no better.
You're no better. And
can we talk about the real reason they lost? Because Caitlin Clark had 41 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds, right? It was 94 to 87. Bro. She had nearly 50% of the points. I mean, this woman is phenomenal.
Okay, there was a clip I was going to pull in, but I know you guys wouldn't get it. So the defender on her, Haley Van Lith, I believe her name is, she got torched last night, right? She was running all over the place. And she was trying hard, and she's a competitor, but she got flamed. And there's a clip on Twitter of this fighter that her face is beat up. And they're like, this is a Haley Van Lith right now. And she's like, I really enjoyed the experience. And it's so funny, dude.
I've seen that. Oh, she's got
she got the 2 eyes. And she's like, it was a different ball game.
Yeah. Well, Caitlin Clark, man, she's bringing some real excitement to that game.
Dude.
She's exciting to watch.
Yeah. So congrats to Clark in Iowa, and tip of the hat to LSU, man. I mean, it's a special opportunity competing on a national level.
Yeah.
Like win or loss. Like those are experiences they'll have forever. So
absolutely.
Well,
transitioning over that.
Yes.
Kick it.
Yes. The White House. So as you probably are aware of, over the weekend, it was also Transgender Visibility Day. Day of Visibility that just so happened to coincide with Easter. And many people are not happy about that. Some politicians, some regular everyday folks. But the White House decided to push back in terms of people questioning their response and, in fact, blame it on political gains. And so this article, courtesy of USA Today, Yahoo News. So the White House pushed back Monday, guys. This comes from an article from Joey Garrison of USA Today, published on Yahoo News. The White House pushed back Monday at outcries from Republicans over President Joe Biden's recognition of Transgender Day of Visibility, which fell on Easter, calling out the misinformation that led to the controversy. He's thoroughly uninformed, Biden said of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who wrote on X that Biden betrayed the central tenet of Easter by recognizing the day of transgender people on the same day as Easter. In the proclamation that was issued Friday, which, by the way, you made me aware of over the weekend, I was like, is this a joke?
Yes, I was lying to you.
Biden declared March 31 the Transgender Day of Visibility, consistent with the same date that since 2009 has annually been used to celebrate the success of transgender and non-binary people to bring awareness to discrimination against the trans community. The American people are taking note, said Johnson, who in the same X post falsely accused Biden of banning sacred truth and tradition by not allowing religious-themed eggs at the White House Easter egg roll. I will not continue the rest of this article, only based on the fact that it's kind of lengthy and he goes into different places. But the point that we wanted to highlight, because this article was circulating, was that the White House, rather than responding to a lot of the backlash that they were getting, they chose to point it back at their opponents and say that this is a route of misinformation, which I think misses the whole point when you're talking about everyday folks like you and I and our listeners.
At the end of it, they always wrap in, well, like, but Joe Biden's a Christian.
Yes.
He would never do that. That's how they always end it.
Now, there is one key point in terms of how people are processing this. Yes, the Transgender Day of Visibility has, in fact, been March 31 for several years now. Yes, it has been that way. But in terms of the White House doing it, I believe it started actually in 2021, right after he got in the office, where they made the first official proclamation, the White House acknowledging it. And so, but my take on it is, as a leader, how negligent can you be?
Well, he doesn't care about that.
Exactly.
I mean, I've said this before, but the way that they push this, it's an ideology. So they don't want to call it a religion, but it's a religion.
Get 'em.
And so if they don't call it a religion, then they can continue to push it from at the government level, right? But I mean, there was a post that showed the number of days that celebrate that whole community. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 30 a whole month.
Yes.
60. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So almost
and
70.
Another month, entire month of November.
Right. Almost, we'll call it 90 days.
We're approaching a quarter.
A whole quarter, right? So could you imagine if there was that many national Christian holidays? Right. So you can't.
Like, time out though. Like,
this almost looks like the Catholic Holy Day of Obligation. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just thinking, like, I only get 28 days in February, bro. These guys get 90.
Yeah.
Black History. Like, I get 28 days.
Well, this picture too, they have 3 entire months.
3 entire months. Oh, okay. So we're approaching over 100, right?
Yeah. So well over a quarter, but
Right.
it's like, they don't call it a religion, but they're trying to force an ideology on you. And I think that's the bigger issue of this whole entire concept is, you're part of being an American, you're entitled to live in your own damn fantasy world. Rock on, right? I just don't have to participate. And so the moment that we start to force it on people is the moment we got a problem, right? So you can't simultaneously do that and then not simultaneously celebrate every Christian holiday, right?
Facts.
So, I get the timing of it. It's not probably wasn't the best timing, and it was probably very intentional and with when they set it up and how they announced it and all that.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about the bigger problem. Like, calm down, guys. Like, make up like 1% of the entire population. It's craziness.
0.05. I mean, 0.5. 0.5.
Yeah.
0.5% of just about a million.
Right.
dude, for me personally, obviously we have our feeds locked in, and so we see the outcry. But I've been on this kick by way of us being able to do this podcast with you guys, where I'm trying to unpack things, not just from what I know to be true and experience and obviously feel. But for me, the weighty part of this is actually, so the proclamation that was sent out on Friday from the White House. It's a little lengthy, so I won't read it, but here's the latter portion of the last three paragraphs. So, it says, today we send a message to all transgender Americans. You are loved. You are heard. You are understood. You belong. You are America, and my entire administration and I have your back. Now, therefore, I, Joseph Biden, President of the United States, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim March 31st is Transgender Day. I call upon all Americans to join us in lifting up the lives and voices of transgender people throughout our nation and to work towards eliminating violence and discrimination based on gender identity. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 29th day of March in the year of our Lord 2024, and of the independence of the United States, the 248th. The thing that's so striking about this is that I'm kind of speechless on this in the sense that, first of all, these statements of like, you are America, our entire administration and I have your back. And these voices of transgender are being eliminating violence and discrimination. Okay, if a population is 0.5% of the nation and they're being actively eliminated with violence and discrimination, and it's as bad as it's always being cast, like where they should be gone by now then, right? Like if you just think about numbers, if you just, and people can say this is a weak argument, but I'm just saying, like, if so many people are against 0.5% of the nation, where's all this carnage? Where's all this struggle?
It's not carnage. It's emotional carnage.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
People don't want to accept it. Like, it's what I just said, right? It's right. Like, you can dress up like a damn cat. I just don't have to accept you as a cat.
Correct.
Like, I've heard people going as far as, my kid thinks he's a cat, so I took him to the vet and the vet denied him care. It's like, calm down now. Okay.
Right.
That's the kind of craziness,
I agree.
In order for society to have structure, like there has to be some lines that we draw, right? That's it. So
my point is just that it's this invisible, it's this spiritual game that you're just going to keep pushing it and keep pushing it and pushing it till people break down, because it's not happening is the point that I was trying to make.
They could legitimately just have a awareness day 365 days out of the year. It will never become the predominant part of culture. It'll always be like a sect and a counterculture movement.
Unless it's forced or coerced. That's it.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. That's the only way it plays out. Is by force or coercion.
But to your point, 60 million people, only 1 million of them or whatever are in this camp. Do we actually genuinely think that one day the majority of the population is going to be like this?
No.
I don't.
No.
I mean, we got other fish to fry.
Speaking of, let's transition. Let's transition to some fish that are frying. Well, Joe Biden signed the $1.2 trillion spending package into law on Saturday. And so let's jump on that a little bit. So the budget narrowly avoided the budget deal. Excuse me, my framing guys this morning. I got to get my eyes checked or eat some more carrots or something. Okay, so President Joe Biden, this comes by way of Instagram, signed a $1.2 trillion spending package into law on Saturday, March 23rd, finalizing the government's budget for the remainder of the fiscal year until October 1st. The budget deal narrowly avoided a government shutdown, passing the Senate early Saturday morning and the House Friday. Despite last-minute disagreements from opposition and from some hardline Republicans, the passage of this spending bill comes after a tumultuous period in Congress, which saw the ousting of Kevin McCarthy last October, and Speaker Mike Johnson facing a motion for the removal of MTG. You can just see their biases after the House package was approved. Long story short, $1.2 trillion spending package enacted into law. What are your thoughts?
I think we need to read through it because I don't even know what goes into it. All as I know is that right now, $1.2 trillion is only going to get us till October, and then we have to do this all over again. So if you've been paying attention, it's happening
consistently.
Every quarter, every 6 months, they're constantly having to fight to get this spending bill. So I want to read through some of the things that are in this and see if we can dissect it. It is a lot.
It is a lot.
It's almost too much to read on this podcast, but
check this out though, before you start. 1,012 pages is how long this bill is to be read.
It's crazy. It passed 286 to 134. And I'm trying to get my bearings on this breakdown here.
Yeah. So it is a pretty lengthy article, which we will include in the show notes.
So it says the bill for the fiscal year of 2024, which includes the last 6 of Congress, normal 12 annual appropriation bills, contains billions. Case requested for Hawaii. It follows enactment last month of $565 billion measure covering the first 6 of the normal 12 funding bills. See here. So it goes into more detail, but some of the provisions of the special interest to Hawaii, for which case advocated through 2024, include $106 million to work to close the Red Hill fuel tank facility and remediate concerns related to other water crisis. Obviously, there's been a lot going on in Hawaii with the major fire that they had.
Right.
$5 million for U.S. Indo-Pacific Command's community engagement, $46 million for Native Hawaii education program, $22 million for East-West Center, $1 billion to the SBA, which I'm for that one, $27 million for women's business centers programs. I don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. $173 million for adult employment and training activities. I don't know what that means. $320 million for emergency management grants, $12.3 billion for Head Start, an increase of $275 million.
Yeah.
A lot of defense spending. We're talking
$800 billion.
$824.5 billion in defense spending, which, I mean, I guess we need that. And who knows what else is stacked there. I mean, the list is,
dude,
guys.
There's a lot, dude.
This is just somebody trying to pull out each line item.
$40 million to advance the development of next step radar system to protect Hawaii from missile attacks. Like, hey, all due respect, I know it's hard, but missile attacks, like, are you expecting that? Are we really expecting that? $178 million for sea-based X-band radar, which helps defend Hawaii from ballistic missile threats. I thought that was what you had $40 million for, to advance the next step radar system.
But it goes to show you a lot of these things, obviously related to the military. Those are important. The SBA, small business makes up 70% of the economy.
Yeah.
Those things are important. But the amount of programs that the federal government is sponsoring is just downright out of hand. Like, if you were an entrepreneur and you ran a business and you had your hands in this many things, you would not be very successful at pretty much anything.
Correct.
You're partially good at a lot of things. And so I don't entirely know how this stuff gets put together. That's my own ignorance and something that I'm trying to learn more about. But, who decides how much and when and why we spend on these things? But truthfully, the best medicine is to just let them run out of money, right? Because clearly none of these, if you have to constantly have the federal government step in and fund these things, it means you don't make money.
Correct.
Or you're bad at managing your money. And so Speaking about bad at managing your money, I mean, we're spending, what was the quote? $1 trillion.
$1 trillion.
Every 90 days, the debt in this country is going up.
Yes.
And so there was a post about it that we wanted to share with you guys because it's pretty important.
Yeah. So
click over to the LinkedIn post. Yeah.
Look at that. Issuances of U.S. treasuries are now at pandemic levels. We've seen nearly $7 trillion in gross issuances of U.S. treasuries in just 3 months during 2023. For the entire year of 2023, a whopping $23 trillion in U.S. treasuries were issued. U.S. federal debt is rising by $1 trillion every 90 days right now. U.S. government spending as a percentage of GDP is at World War II levels. I believe it's like 123%, 128%. Why are Treasury, Rick Lang, this all comes by way of Rick Lang, and he asked the question, why are Treasury issuances and deficits at record levels if we are on track for a soft landing? Issuances of U.S. treasuries are now at pandemic levels. Courtesy of LinkedIn and Rick Lang. And dude,
yeah, it's
how do entrepreneurs begin this, and everyday folks, the people they lead, begin to sort of wrap their mind around this environment? Like,
I mean, the first thing is, the benefit, one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur is just the fact that you can fight against some of these things, right? Because there's benefits that come to you as an entrepreneur, right? You can have write-offs and not pay taxes and do things like that. But it does mean your operational costs are going to go up because inflation is clearly prominent. They're just fictitiously adjusting the market right now to try to have this soft landing. But behind the curtain, they're printing more money for spending bills. They're printing more money for M0 money, which is like central bank money that then goes into the bank supply to try to keep these banks solvent, which I think is a growing issue. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes in banking, and that was already alluded to. We talked about it in a previous podcast where the Fed chairman was talking specifically about how there are some insolvent banks out there. Yeah. And there's going to be more banks.
There's going to be more bank failures. One thing I wanted to do, though, as we continue to dive deep on this piece, is if you didn't know what a treasury bond is, I wanted to pull this up for you guys. And Cole, you may not have this link, but I think it's in the document. But if you go to Investopedia and just say, what is a treasury bond? A treasury bond will be defined as government debt securities issued by the U.S. federal government that have maturities of 20 or 30 years. T-bonds earn periodic interest until maturity, at which point the owner is paid a par amount equal to the principal. Treasury bonds are part of the larger category of U.S. sovereign debt that is now eclipsing 123% of GDP, known collectively as treasuries. So when we talk about treasury levels being high, this is what we're talking about. And which are typically regarded as virtually risk-free since they are backed by the U.S. government's ability to tax its citizens. That's a key point. When we talk about what these things are, the value from an investment side or from the financial side is that these things run on the back of taxation, or as Samson has been alluding to, the ability to print money.
Yeah.
And so,
which is the problem, right? Is you keep issuing debt to fund tons and tons of erroneous programs.
Right.
You keep overspending.
Right.
Eventually, you have to print money, right? You can't just use taxpayer money anymore in order to do that. But that leads us to this fundamental question, which is, if they can just print more money, then why are we still paying taxes? What's the point? And so I actually searched that, Googled that question. And so the IRS had a wonderful answer for me.
Okay.
It basically said taxes provide revenue for federal, local, and state governments to fund essential services, defense, highways, police, a justice system that benefit all citizens who could not provide such services very effectively for themselves. Taxes also fund programs and services that benefit only certain citizens, such as health, welfare, social services, job training, schools, and parks. And it goes on to list a bunch of other things. But we pay more in federal taxes than we do in state taxes. So you're not actually feeling a lot of that immediate impact in and around your own community.
Right.
In fact, the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the property owners, those are the ones that end up paying for all that stuff. Yeah. Right. If you're an employee who doesn't really own assets, you're getting taxed too. But it's still it just blows my mind. It's just how and why are we paying taxes? I don't know the answer other than that's just the way that it's always been. But I think, if you're listening to this, if you're an entrepreneur, it's just a testament to, making your money, diversifying your assets into other things, and essentially working to exit stage left from the system. Yeah. Right. This is where a guy like Dave Ramsey, and he really advocates for not having a lot of debt, not being controlled. If you don't have debt and you own assets outright and you're not participating in the system, which is everything's run by debt right now, then there's a lot of peace in that.
Yeah.
And a lot of headspace to be creative or think through things clearly as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And as he would put it, freedom. Because biblically, right, you're slave to the lender.
Yeah. So there's a lot of freedom. So obviously using debt is strategic.
Yeah.
But it just blows my mind that the federal government doesn't make any money, and they don't.
Can you say that again? Because
they don't make any money.
That's essential.
And so they rely on us as taxpayers to do that. But now they just print money. They can create money, and that's a real problem. And so the cure for all of this is to actually just start letting these programs go tits up. right? Just let them fall apart, stop funding them, and force them to be better capital allocators, better at managing their money. But man, we've gotten so addicted to the machine of just print more money.
Well,
Give me more money. I want my cut.
Well, and being frank, in hearing all this, the question that I'm asking myself is, if you need to make money, but the government could just print money, at what point do the people realize that their money isn't money,
right?
And the money that we think is money becomes worthless?
And this is what's been said ever since we moved off of a gold-backed currency. A dollar backed by nothing is really just zeros and ones.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. I mean, how much cash do you generally carry on you?
$50.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And so if you went
Tops.
into bank account today and you wanted to get 50 grand out, that might be challenging to do that, right?
Right.
I had an investor recently give me everything in cash. Like, dude, why are you doing this to me, man? Like, now I got to go explain why I'm putting this money in there. But I was thinking about that. I was like, I wonder how hard it was for him to get the cash out,
Right.
And how hard it would be for me to get the cash out if I needed it.
So when we consider this, like when we're considering these terrible trends, what is maybe your advice for our brothers and sisters in business out there who are trying to build, who are trying to lead, and how to lead people and serve them and make sure they have better lives? How do we, yes, exit stage left from the system, but the ability to do that maybe when you haven't been paying attention for decades or whatever time it is, or you're just young and don't have the leverage.
I mean, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you're very aware of the of the current cost of capital. So you're paying attention to it, hopefully. And if you're listening to this podcast, we talk about it quite a bit. So hopefully you're paying attention to it. I think we're on the trajectory for a crash course. That's my take. I don't know when, I don't know why, I don't know how. I hope it doesn't happen. Yeah. But the only inevitable future is for this thing to come crumbling down like it has always done. They've always tried to do a soft landing. 1929, 1987, .com bubble, 2008. It's all started by different things from different sectors, but it always ends the same way. Cheap money over leverage. Correction. Whether that's going to be a depression or whether that's going to be I don't think we'll see a depression because they can just print more money, but we probably will see a pretty significant recession. The only way maybe out of it is for them to reset the currency and actually like issue something new, which they've been working on, which is a digital currency.
CBDC, yeah.
But that's even scarier because it's now connected to it's not a digital decentralized currency.
Right.
Which technically we have a digital currency now. Right. Yeah. So I don't really know, but I do listen to guys like Larry Fink, who is, a very successful real estate investor, leader of BlackRock. And he had some very specific concerns about this topic. And I think when that guy speaks up, we should probably be listening to it.
Yeah. So Larry said, Larry, like I'll know Larry.
Our boy, Larry.
Larry. So Larry had to tell us. So Larry Fink, the CEO of the world's largest money manager, BlackRock, says U.S. debt at a very dangerous level, quote, very dangerous. He issued a warning in his annual letter to investors. In America, the situation is more urgent than I can ever remember. Can't assume investors will keep buying U.S. treasuries. Remember those things that are secured by taxation or printing money, after issuing $11 trillion of additional debt since the pandemic. These are things that Larry said. Total U.S. debt is now at $33.17 trillion and 123% of total GDP.
We just crossed over with this new spending bill, $34 trillion. We're spending $1 trillion every 90 days, so every quarter. So we're gonna gain, if we stay this rate, we'll gain another $4 trillion. So we'll be at 38 trillion by the end of this year. And so we're gonna, by the time October runs, we're gonna have to go back for another spending increase, right? And so the problem is just getting out of hand. The cure, like Peter Schiff would say, is to just cut it off. The cure is not printing more money.
Right.
And so audit the balance sheet and go see which of these programs really needs to exist and which one don't.
Well, a majority of them, more than likely, right? There's some that people obviously. It's such an interesting thing to think about from someone who maybe is outside of the financial world and sector, which isn't an excuse, by the way. I think we have come to use it as a crutch of like why we're not considering these things and trusting the input of others when it's like, nah, you should probably have a pulse on these things. But this system, dude, I think I'm just personally over here like, at what point does the thing blow up? Like, I know you talk about a crash, but like when you think about the way this goes, it's like I don't know, dude. I don't even have the words to frame it, and you can help, but just it's like a constant running to the edge of the cliff and then coming back. And
yeah, I mean, fiat currency is the term that people would use. It's
right.
It's a currency backed by absolutely nothing.
Correct.
So you have these cycles, and they generally run every 8 to 10 years. We've delayed this one. Like we should have had one circa 2018, right? 2008, 2007 is kind of when the last crash happened. It didn't happen. We rolled into 2020. Rates got even lower. Things got crazier.
Yeah. And
then they raised rates back up, right?
Yeah.
And so there is another correction. It is coming. I don't know when. I don't know why. I don't know how. If you're an entrepreneur, you're an investor, you need to be stacking cash. You need to be preparing for winter. Because it'll happen when you least expect it, right? When you have gotten comfortable, I guess this isn't going to happen. That's exactly when it will happen.
So let me ask you this. Are you making a case that entrepreneurs need to be familiar with Bitcoin?
I mean, yeah, on one hand,
I'm not
yes.
being backhanded, of course.
Yeah. They need to be, they also need to think about gold. They need to be thinking about cash reserves and their runway. They need to be thinking about how to scale with less people, more tech, more automation. Just because you've done it one way for a certain amount of time doesn't mean you should keep doing it that way.
Yeah.
In the hand will be forced, right?
Yeah.
Generally, it's not forced until we're put into a situation where we have to. Don't let it get to a have to situation. Start making those changes now.
Yeah. That's good, dude. I mean, it's unsettling, to be frank with you. Like taking this in, it's unsettling. Like for me, like.
Yeah. I mean, just so people are aware, like how much bigger is a billion than a trillion? Right. So I think it's like 100,000 times bigger is what it's 100. It's 1,000 billions. Yeah. So a trillion is 1,000 billions. And then how much bigger is a billion than a million? Because I don't think most people know how big that actually is. Yeah. So a billion is 1,000 million. So how many millions are in a trillion? Right. So 1,000 times 1,000, right?
What's that?
How many millions?
1,000.
It's 1,000 times 1,000, right? Yeah. So it's, yeah. So a $1 trillion is 1 million millions. It's crazy, right? Like, I don't think it has become such a surreal number that people can't even get their head wrapped around it. 1 million. It is crazy. I mean, look at that. Well, you need to include some of these in the pod so people can see how big that actually is.
Oh, man.
Insanity.
And you have one of those every 90 days, just stacking on top of each other.
If we keep going at the rate that we are, look at all the programs we just were funding, right?
Correct.
It's unnecessary.
Correct. So there's time. It's time to, what's that? Hunker down.
Yeah.
Hunker down. Winter's coming. Winter is in fact coming. And one of the things I was going to say is like, we have this tendency to come across these posts and Squawk Box and things, and it just becomes noise because there's so much of it where people look up. And as long as the day goes the way I plan on going, it's generally okay.
Do you remember how rare, maybe not, but I remember how rare it used to be to hear about a $1 billion company?
Yeah, for sure.
Like
it was a thing.
Like to get a unicorn status.
It was a thing for sure.
How many companies are selling for billions of dollars today, right? That's happening as a byproduct of all this cheap money that's being printed.
Right.
It's the same reason, why minimum wage is going up, cost of living's going up, is because just in general, the new baseline is significantly higher.
Well,
but the wages haven't increased to support that.
Well, you remember when you were a kid, like, oh, I want to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And now you're like, yeah, I probably want to be 100 millionaire. So, I mean, just another indication of this is, let's talk about the city of Denver.
Yeah.
All right. So, dude, just down south here.
Yeah. Denver, I guess in a good way is cracking down. I don't necessarily know where it's coming from, but
yeah. Well, I know the citizens of surrounding towns have started to speak more, voting down various different pieces of legislation and stuff, and fighting against the notion of being a sanctuary city. But guys, Denver official is going viral across the internet, of course, when he suggested that immigrants should go to New York City or Chicago, and quote unquote, the opportunities are over. So various different publications have released this, but we pulled this directly from Colorado Politics. And it was written by Annabella Rossiglione by way of the Washington Examiner. So they probably just pulled it and pasted it. But facing a multi-million-dollar budget deficit, back to the spending here, guys. Yeah. The city of Denver is suggesting that immigrants go elsewhere. A video obtained by 9 News, which we have and we'll share with you guys, showed Andres Carrera, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston's political director, speaking in Spanish to immigrants, telling them there are better opportunities outside of Colorado. He said in the video, the opportunities are over. Excuse me. New York gives you more. Chicago gives you more. So I suggest you go there where there is longer-term shelter. There are also more job opportunities there. We are not going to block you if you want to stay here. If you stay here, you are going to suffer even more. And I don't want to see this. The immigrants in the video arrived on March 26th, a part of Governor Abbott of Texas' efforts to bus immigrants out of Texas to sanctuary cities. According to a city spokesperson, Carrera said immigrants won't be blocked from staying, but suggest they would invoke more suffering by staying. Lastly, Denver recently began cracking down on immigrants staying in the city. Last month, the city began closing shelters in order to address its budget deficit. Closing shelters saved the city $60 million, bringing the deficit down to $120 million from $180 million.
Literally what we were just saying.
Yes.
Ending some of these programs. And this is, again, guys, we're not against legal immigration, and we're not against helping people, immigrate and get out of the situation that they're in. There are also a lot of really terrible people that are coming through. Mm-hmm. And then we're not taking the time to stop and think about the long-term burden and impact that this stuff is having on us, particularly when we have a terrible homeless problem. The average American has less than $1,000 in savings. We're talking about educated populace.
Correct.
That has less than $1,000 in savings. And we're over here giving away money to these immigrants, which obviously they're totally hamstrung because they can't work. They can't do any of that. So we're setting them up for this disaster. Right. It's not like they just get here and all of a sudden life is good and easy. Like, we're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with the same kinds of issues. And you're stepping into a workforce where you don't really have any skills or education or anything to compete. What are you supposed to do? Right. And so now cities are waking up. I mean, this is a good thing about, state, local governments actually having some control over that, aside from what the federal government's doing and allowing. Yeah. But you're going to see more cities like this wake up.
You are, dude. And personally, I feel like we're a nation in need of courageous leadership. And leadership, it does not mean title or position. And what sparks my thought to say that is actually the rest of this article. I want to share the rest of this portion with you guys and you guys here. She says, she's quoting Johnston. She's quoting Mark Johnson, the mayor. We knew that as a result of federal inaction on immigration and the resulting budget crisis, there were 2 important steps we needed to take. Johnson said this at the time of the closures. One was to address the city's budget to help support these needs, and the second one was to reduce the overall cost of our migrant program. Immigrants were not kicked out, but they were moved to different shelters as part of the consolidation process. This is post closing down some of these shelters to save money. Carrera's message suggests that Denver is still looking to cut the number of immigrants in the city from 38,000, as it was last tallied in February. Other Colorado cities have said that they will not financially support the immigration crisis. You don't have to walk anywhere. We can buy you a free ticket. You can go to any city. We can take you up to the Canadian border, wherever. The reason why I say I think we need courageous leadership is because we're so prone to move around what the actual issue is. It's like, okay, we knew that there were going to be two steps. One was to adjust the budget to support needs. The second was to reduce the overall cost of migrant programs. Why not stop them from coming?
Right.
Like that part right there is like, there's this need for courageous leadership.
I think the problem is that at least the state level is really hard
Hands
to
are
stop.
tied.
Once they're in,
Yes,
it's very hard to stop them.
for sure.
So I think the bigger issue is just it's definitely at the border is the issue.
Yeah, that's what yeah. Like it just baffles me. Like we do this for you guys who are leading businesses, and I just cannot. When I'm looking at this stuff, I just see this glaring demand for leadership. It's a leadership crisis of like, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is what the argument has been. And so again, like it's kind of like the context that I see. I'm really seeing it from the people that are migrating's perspective today. Imagine I have a company and I hire an employee and I ask them to move all the way across the country, move their family, move their life to come there. And then the day that they show up, I go, hey, it's not working out, which you can do in Colorado. Colorado is an at-will employer. So you just moved your whole life, your whole family, sold your house, you have no home. You're here as an American citizen.
Yeah.
You have the right to work. And I just pulled the rug out from underneath you. It would be hard for you in that situation. Now imagine traveling from a totally different country. You don't speak the language. You don't have the ability to work or make money.
Right.
You don't have anything to your name, really. And then all of a sudden you're thrust into this situation. I mean, what do you do? It's desperation, man. So some of the crime that we're seeing is probably out of desperation for sure.
For sure.
But we're just setting these people up for disaster.
Right. Well, and I feel like too, we're also setting us up for some really hard decisions.
Correct.
Because what we're ultimately going to have to do is take some steps to solve this issue that's going to involve people feeling very uncomfortable with the choices they've had to come to support, or we acquiesce to it and say, well, we'll just change the whole thing to accommodate. But if you do that, there's implications to that too. And we don't have the answers here, but I do think that it's like what you said, dude. Like when we're talking about the just a few minutes ago with the spending, whereas like, hey, if your business or is going to fail, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Like, and at some point we're going to have to decide whether they're going to close the border, or we're going to do deportation. We're going to do the things that we need to do to get the situation rectified, or we're just going to let it flow. It just seems like these are the choices.
Yeah, this happens at the end of every major economic cycle, right? We're coming to the end of it. Weak leadership, it's like pandering to the smallest 1%, radical individualism. That's what got us here. The liberal religion of wokeism.
Right.
And they try to make you feel guilty for crap like this. It's like, you should feel terrible about what the situation you just put that person in.
Yeah.
And
you should.
And there's a reason that we have sovereignty. There's a reason that we have borders, because there are certain ideologies in other countries that we do not want to participate in. I can promise you.
Yeah. And everything sounds good on paper, right? It sounds good on paper to be a place for people to come to. It sounds good on paper to be a sanctuary city. Well, here are the implications of it, right?
Yep.
You actually didn't think through this. You actually didn't plan. You actually didn't get the input of the people who you need to get the input of. And now,
so I'm all for it. I mean, my family were immigrants, both on my mom's side and my dad's side, right? They came through Ellis Island, right? And I'm only like third generation. Like my families haven't even been here for 100 years, right? So immigration's very important, right? But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And so, right now, the way it's happening, at the rate at which it's happening, it's total chaos. And it doesn't end well. It doesn't end well for American citizens. It doesn't end well for the immigrants.
Right.
And in between that there's a lot of people who do not have good intentions.
Correct.
In coming here.
Fact. Said it best. We didn't even play the video, but we don't need to. Let's talk about a couple more things as we
close out here.
As we close out here, yeah, with our listeners. So Colorado, as of yesterday, initiated their Colorado. I'm tripping.
You know, it's funny though. Colorado tends to follow all of California's laws, so it's coming, baby.
Guys, that was a moment of prophesying right there, guys. Mark my words. This clip, when the news breaks, we're gonna rewind this clip. So California, they officially roll out the $20 an hour minimum wage for restaurants. This was on the docket for a while. It was passed and celebrated, and they knew this was coming. So it's not news in that sense, but the implications are huge for us nationally. And if you're a business owner in particular with restaurants with certain criteria, this is a big deal for you. And so we're going to get a little bit of context on the bill. The program started yesterday, but this actually comes by way of an article last September by Restaurant Business. And they gave a lot of detailed analysis on what this actual bill, the FAST Act bill, and there's some key points that I want to pull. So the FAST Act bill raises the state minimum to $20 an hour. It's a 25% increase from the previous $16 per hour wage. And the bill specifically targets any limited service chain with more than 60 units nationwide. So it applies to fast casual operators like Chipotle, Sweet Greens, McDonald's, Burger King. Though bakeries that sell bread like Panera are exempt for now. Fundamentally, people believe that increasing the minimum wage for limited service workers, Fundamentally, however, it's believed that doing this will actually have like a trickle down in terms of it won't be long before it's pushed out for any restaurant.
I'm sure they have to get one foot in the door first.
Yeah. And so we have a clip that I'm pretty sure it's the right link. But there's a clip of a California restaurant owner opining on this, and we'll only spend a few minutes with it. It comes by way of Fox News, but I think it's best to hear from people on the ground in these matters.
Speaking of prices, California's mandatory minimum wage for fast food workers will jump from $16 to $20 an hour on Monday. Businesses are scrambling to find ways to offset the extra labor costs. They say in many cases, customers will just end up eating the difference. But LA restaurant owner Angela Marsden, she's got a lot of concern about this and about her friends and their businesses, and she joins us now. Angela, when I was reading some of your thoughts about this, I have to say I felt heartbroken by it because I know what it takes to be a small business owner. Although I've only had a small business on my own for a little while, it's a lot. All of that responsibility, all of that worry, and this just feels to me like you're on a knife's edge right now on whether you can continue.
Dana, those of us that are still here are lucky to even be alive from COVID. We are the ones that were strong enough to be the mom and pop shops that survived COVID. And now we're hit with this. And it directly impacts the small businesses. And for people to think it doesn't is crazy. We have massive layoffs that's going to happen. I actually have a friend, his friend has 7 McDonald's. She's a franchisee's owner. She's going to be closing 4 of them. Wow. So we're going to have massive layoffs, massive job losses. And when it comes to being a mom and pop shop, if you can get $20 an hour dropping fries at McDonald's, what do you expect you want me to pay to make a nice meal or a nice hamburger? Mm-hmm. My hamburger currently is going up to $20-some an hour. Reddit is $25 for a hamburger, a fries, and a soft drink. So imagine you're going into your neighborhood pub and your hamburger and fry is now costing you $26. I mean, literally, Gavin Newsom, I hope the United States is watching. I hope he never becomes president. This man is destroying California. I don't understand why people can't see that he's the biggest trickster of all time. He literally is saying, I'm going to help everybody. I'm going to give them $20 an hour. And now they're getting laid off. They're losing their jobs. And by the way, Who's paying for it? It is a silent tax on the public. The public will pay for the unemployment of the people that are let go.
I mean, it's been the theme of this whole podcast, but the policies and the ideals that come out of California are akin to what we're seeing at the federal government at the moment, right?
For sure.
And so don't be surprised by this,
right?
Because it is a byproduct of big government spending frivolously, meddling in the lives of business owners, and not letting the free market do what the free market does, which is to level set. You make a bad product, nobody buys it. You're a jerk to work for, nobody works for you. The other challenge is just the cost of living in California I just looked it up. It's 38% higher than the national average.
Yeah.
So again, the market will set itself and would fix these problems if the government wasn't continually fictitiously inflating the economy with money. And that's what happens. And so the trickle down effect from the top, when you do that, people closest to the money benefit the most. And then as it floats its way down, you have to do these things, right? Because the business owner, they're not going to raise the minimum wage, right? The margins in restaurants are 10%. It's like the highest failure rate out of any business possible. And so I mean, I get it from the employee standpoint,
right?
But at the same time, the person or the business owner in the middle gets squeezed on both ends of that, because the operating costs are higher, the cost of capital is higher,
correct,
cost of doing business is higher, the cost of taxes are higher, money is cheap and inflated. And so in the middle of that hamburger, for lack of a better term, is the employer. And so I see a world where, like here in Colorado, right? Colorado is forcing, you have to set up 401ks for your employees. It's like, no, I don't have to set up 401ks for my employees. If you don't, then you have to at least offer them the state-sponsored route. Okay, offer them the state-sponsored route. Who got that contract? Whose pockets are getting lined with the state-sponsored 401k plan? And you start putting all these demands on people, you'll see people start to move away from just W-2 work and just move to more 1099, which is hard to do. Or they'll just always keep people at part-time, so they don't have to give them full-time benefits, right?
Right. At the end of the day, people want sovereignty, right?
Yep.
So they're going to do things, they're going to make pivots and adjust and try different things to maintain that sovereignty, which is, in the name of liberty, an unalienable God-given right by their creator, made in his image. And so you just see this system where it's like, ultimately it's coming down to, does the state know better? Does the state know better? Or do you want to actually have the opportunity to find out with your own efforts and opportunities, skills, passions, talents, and obviously providence?
There's just such a disconnect, though. They assume that business owners just can absorb this cost. Like the average small business owner makes $65,000 a year. Well, like less than 4% of small business owners ever get over $1 million in rev.
Dude, I was looking at some stats on McDonald's. Like the average person from a franchisee standpoint will make just over between 100 and 160 once it's all said and done. Owner operator, yeah. Like, so they're not rolling in buku dollars. People think that because they have the big name, but that model is not. That's not how that works, And so to your point, it's like those closest to it, will not feel it, but the guy, your local guy, is going to feel it, and you don't realize too that soon you will feel it. That's the other piece, and so it's like, I can't help but be all patriotic when I think about the stuff I'm seeing, and I'm thinking about the grievances in the Declaration of Independence, and I'm like, man, we ain't there yet in this case, but you just see this hand, this invisible, not even an invisible hand. It's a hand where it's like, we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you how to operate your business. We're going to tell you about the future you can create for your family. We're going to tell you about the options you have, what kind of stove you can have, how much gas you can put out, how long you can do it. We're going to charge you more for water. We're doing it here in Colorado. We're going to charge you more during certain hours for the same usage. Like, it's like, bruh. Like, can we get that sound effect inserted? Bruh. We need that. Like, where it's like,
again, right? Like at a certain point, this whole idea that the federal government is coming to save everybody ends disastrously.
Bruh.
You remove the free market and the ingenuity. I mean, once upon a time, this idea of waking up and like going to work for somebody was not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a weird way, everybody was an entrepreneur in smaller communities, right? You maybe were a farmer or a hunter. You went out that day and killed a bunch of rabbits. You took them into the market and sold them. That was how that economy kind of worked. And then as it grew, you know, people became specialized in certain things, right? And then that's where a currency comes in and allows us to exchange. You grow corn, I raise cows. I don't want corn, but I'll, you know, take your money and I'll go get something else.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you infiltrate that with the federal government meddling in that currency. And that's where things start to get out of hand. And people realize that they don't even have to actually be a producer to make money. It's the same thing I was a commodities broker. It's the same thing I saw. You had actual people who were raising cows and pigs and growing corn and wheat and soybeans, and they would use the market to hedge, to protect their downside, their cash physical position. And then you had all the people in the middle that were just trading the markets and trying to gamble. And so that's the byproduct of it, is when the federal government steps in, starts meddling and starts throwing around free, cheap money, this is what you get.
Well, California is going to now become a tourist attraction because people won't be able to go there. They're going to be coming every 5 years.
I don't know why you don't live there, man.
So $30 burgers coming to a town near you in California. So, all right, let's
maybe we just close on this, huh?
Yeah, we can.
This episode's getting long.
You guys have things to do, just like we do. Yeah, we can close on that. I would like to have we can do that. We can wrap on that.
Just pull it in. We'll pull it into the next one.
The entrepreneurship one?
No, this one. Go back. Nope, that one. You said it's not going viral, so.
Yeah, so it's at 300,000 views. Yeah, so you wanna save that?
Yeah, let's just save it.
Okay.
Since we're on this like whole money topic thing,
yeah, let's
just stick with that. You know?
Yeah. So okay, so then let's give our listeners a parting word here as we close. Obviously, they heard everything we said today, and you're grappling with the significance of not what we said, but the truth of the things we're talking about and you're listening to. And so I think for me, the closing word that I want to leave you guys with is like, be courageous, because money is like one of the things that I think cripples people. It robs them of courage. You know, no one ever asked me about my money or whatever, or, you know, and so I think courageous is what I'm thinking about as we leave you guys.
So since we've been talking about money this whole time, I think it's a nice little nugget and a good way to cap off this whole podcast. Just hearing from ex-NBA player Lou Williams talking about, you know, the transition of making a bunch of money and coming out to the other side and some of the lessons that we can learn as entrepreneurs.
That's good. Let's do it.
What's the average life in the NBA players? What's the average?
4 years.
4 years. Wow.
4 years. 4 years is the average lifespan of an NBA career. And it take us 5 years after that to go broke. Easy numbers game. I do it like this. You make $5 million, 2.5 of that gone. You got agent fees, probably another 50 of that gone. You got your dues. A lot of people don't know we got dues for the NBPA. You got dues. So everybody put their money in the pot. So you figure you got 450 NBA players. I think the dues is 15 to 20 grand a year. Everybody put it in the pot. That's how we able to get our health care and all of that type of shit.
I didn't know that.
Then you got your personal staff. Financial advisor is probably 1%. Agent at a high number is gonna get 4%.
Right.
But you can negotiate from 1 to 4.
Okay.
So before you look up, you probably at 1.5 million off of 5 with nothing. And these Benzes that we keep talking about in these mansions and shit, these girlfriends and these Chanel bags. Before you know it, you not a millionaire no more.
Right.
You a high thousandaire. On paper, you can tell a motherfucker, fuck you, I'm a millionaire.
Right. Language.
In real life, a lot of that pie gone. So again, and we 17, 18-year-old kids. These are our first experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how it's the other side of entrepreneurship. It's not really entrepreneurship.
No, it's not.
NBA players have they're really expensive employees, really highly paid employees. And the smart ones take that money and parlay them into assets, buy real estate, invest in businesses, turn their brand into some sort of platform that they can leverage and make more money from after the NBA. But man, you give somebody that much money in a short period of time, they don't know what to do with it. So that's what I love about entrepreneurship is it is so freaking hard to actually get to the point where you make real money consistently, that you have you grow a respect along the way about what it actually takes to be successful. And I don't, you've been gifted as an athlete for most of your life, and then all of a sudden you make it to the NBA or the NFL or, name whatever pro league, and you all of a sudden get that much money. You have no concept of how money actually works. Correct. And how hard it is to actually, make that again in the real world. Right. And I think NIL probably is going to make that even worse. Right. Because now these kids are asking when they get recruited, how much NIL money can I get? Forget like, hey, can we go win a national championship? It's how much NIL money can I get? I think the lesson there just for entrepreneurs is it's freaking hard what you're doing. And, you see these guys making all this money or you see really successful entrepreneurs, stick with it, keep going. It is hard. You come out the other side of it. You have a skill, and that skill will allow you to make money in perpetuity. Once these guys are done playing basketball, they got no other skills, right? And they're not developing those skills. And that's where the NBA really does fail a lot of these guys. Right. I think the NBA is probably worse than, say, the NFL. Yeah. Monstrous problem for these guys.
Monstrous problem. And I just think of like, if you want to attain to the highest levels of anything, be it business, sports, society, there comes with things that you have to be able to handle. And I think that's really where the whole other side of entrepreneurship was with that. When I was writing that down for our team here, it was just like, everyone fantasizes about being Elon or being Gary, Hormozy. And it's like, in order to do that, there is a certain level that you have to be able to operate at.
There's a price you must pay.
Yeah.
And the cost of entry is generally lots of mistakes, lots of failures, lots of embarrassment to get to the other side.
Yeah. And so we salute you guys who are out there paying the price. And it will pay off one day.
Yeah, it will.
For many of you. You keep doing the right things and keep going and keep tuning into our podcast. Because we feel that, we appreciate that. And we really value your time and hope you are getting a lot from these podcasts as you navigate the ever-changing landscape of entrepreneurship. And so until next time, we salute you and look forward to speaking with you next week. Take care.